become complex over time, creating significant compliance burdens through multiple registrations, licenses, and returns. Evolving work patterns and new forms of employment underscored the need for a simpler and more coherent system. So, so as per this, so Government of India has introduced has consolidated 29 central labor law acts into 4 labor codes, right? So actually there were 1228 sections were there about that 29 labor laws, and they brought it to 480 sections. And whereas 436 rules were there, they reduced labor law acts 350 into 4 labor. And there are multiple returns, 31 multiple returns were there, right? They have been replaced with a single electronic return. You need not to submit any piece of paper to the Government of India or any authority, right? So only single electronic return will be there. And additional, there are 181 forms are there. They brought it to 73, and there were 84 registers. They just brought to 8. So drastically, they have reduced all the sections, rules, and return forms, and normal forms, and registers also, right? So we are utilizing, we are better, we are taking the advancement of the this technology, advantage of the technology. With the technology we can maintain all the records and everything. We need not to keep any this registers or something. So these are the 4 codes, right? This is payment of wages code in 2019, industrial relations, and occupational safety, health and working conditions, right? And then social security, code on social security. So these are the draft rules, right? And under labor codes, they 1436 they brought to 351. And returns, there were 31 returns were there. They brought into single return in electronic format. And forms 181 were there, right? Now they brought
रिटर्न्स क्या होता है सर?
रिटर्न्स का मतलब है दिस पीपल हैव टू सबमिट दी अभी देख लीजिए कितना पेमेंट कर रहा है, कितना लोग, अगर वर्कमैन कंपेंसेशन एक्ट है इधर, वर्कमैन कंपेंसेशन एक्ट में कितना लोग आप कितना लोग एक्सीडेंट मेट हुआ, उन लोगों में कितना लोगों को आप एनुअल रिटर्न्स रहते हैं ना, एनुअल रिटर्न्स, right? Then registers. So payment of wages में registers रहता है, how much amount you have paid, any fines imposed, fines का register रहना है, वो पूरा register रहता है. So now they made it 8. And registration, right? There were in different acts में different you have to obtain different registrations under the different acts and different licenses for the different work. अगर आप लाइसेंस तेलंगाना स्टेट में लिया, that license will not be valid for the adjacent states of Maharashtra or Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, right? So where you have to, again you have to approach some state government and you have to obtain fresh license for the same work. So now the Government of India has made a single license and a single registration, that too through electronic model. You need not to approach any office or officer for the license or registration. So if you are registered as a contractor for any specific purpose, right, that registration or license is enough for performing across the India. You can execute any contracts. Okay. So this compounding and improvement notice, this is introduced for the first time. So first we will discuss about the codes on wages, right? So this is three acts. Uh, these five acts, right? Amalgates four wages and payment related labor laws, right? So what are that? The Payment of Wages Act 1936, the Minimum Wages Act 1948, the Payment of Bonus Act 1965, and the Equal Remuneration Act 1976. So all these four acts have been merged into single, and they made it as a payment of wage code, right? So we have this Payment of Wages Act 1936, Minimum Wages Act 48, Payment of Bonus Act 65, and the Equal Remuneration Act 1976. Okay. So it aims to balance the rights of workers and facilitate ease of compliance for employers. The code introduces key reforms to streamline and strengthen labor regulation. The code safeguards employees' interests through universal minimum wages. Earlier, as per the Payment of Wages Act and Minimum Wages Act, as per the Minimum Wages Act, the appropriate state government used to fix the minimum wages for the different kinds of people, skilled, unskilled, semi labor, or labor. ऐसा कुछ minimum wages will be fixed by the state government, concerned state government. But now, as per this new wage code, right? The codes on wages 2019, the central government will declare a floor wage, right? Central government will declare a floor wage, and the wage of any person working, it shall not be less than that floor wage. Okay. So it supports women workers through equal pay and representation, fostering inclusive participation, right? There won't be any discrimination, right, with regard to the women and men, right? Uh, so minimum wages to all the employees, it drives and compliances, right? Employers shall pay minimum rates wages notified by appropriate government to employees. So here appropriate government will be central government only. Central government will decide the minimum floor wage. Minimum wage nahi bol raha hai, floor wage bol raha hai. Employers must not discriminate on the basis of gender in paying wages for the same or similar work, and must not discriminate on the basis of sex while recruiting employees. So gender equality, and there won't be any discrimination towards the women employees for the same work, similar work, and same kind of work. In all the ways, this thing, right? Payment of wages should be equal to men and women only. And every establishment shall fix wage periods, which may be daily, weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. All wages must be paid within the prescribed time limits. But old Payment of Wages Act, right? Old Payment of Wages Act mein, it says that monthly basis only, right? Wage period is monthly, right? Wage period. It described that 1936 monthly payment, right? It shall be decided by the employer, right? So if employer have, right? If employed, if more than 1,000 employees, more than 1,000 employees in any organization, then they shall pay that payment, right, within 10 days of expiry of the, right, within 10 days after the wage period. And if it is less than 1,000, then they shall pay the within 7 days. within 7 days from the days of wage period. But here the new act says that you can fix the wage period on daily basis, weekly basis, fortnightly basis, or monthly basis. All wages must be paid within the prescribed time limit only. What are the prescribed time limit for payment of wage limit? If the wage period is a daily basis, कोई daily wage labor है तो his wages, right, उनका तनख्वाह by the end of the day we have to pay. At the end of the day we have to pay the daily wage basis. And in case of weekly basis, on the last working day of the week, अगर किसी का हम वेज पीरियड इज मंडे टू संडे, राइट, मंडे टू संडे, देन वी हैव टू पे, एंड संडे मान लीजिए संडे इज ए हॉलीडे फॉर देम, राइट, संडे इज हॉलीडे, सो वी हैव टू पे लास्ट वर्किंग डे. सो इसका मतलब है लास्ट वर्किंग डे इज, राइट, so Saturday will be the payment day. Saturday we have to pay the payment on the Saturday itself. एंड इन केस ऑफ फोर्टनाइटली बेसिस, फोर्टनाइटली मतलब 15 दिन का वेज पीरियड है तो, राइट, सो इट शुड बी पेड सेकंड डे आफ्टर द एंड ऑफ द मंथ, राइट, दैट वेज पीरियड. अगर मान लीजिए 1 to 15 इज द वेज पीरियड, ओके, इट इज द वेज पीरियड, देन वी हैव टू पे बाय एनी एट एनी कास्ट, राइट, बिफोर 17th डे. Before 17th day we have to arrange the payment to the employees. In case of it's a monthly basis, then they have to pay 7th day of the succeeding month, right, 1 to 30 मान लीजिए wage period, right, so say that it is for the April, so they have to pay by 7th May, they have to arrange the all the wages to the, right, their employees. So wage period में important is that daily basis है तो at the end of the day, and weekly basis on last working day, and fortnight basis within 2 days after expiry of that 15 days, and in case of monthly basis we shall pay before lapse of that 7th day of the succeeding month. In case of any dismissal or resignation or termination, the employer is required to pay all due wages within 2 working days. And this is the new section. Earlier this section is not there, right? Resignation and this thing, this was not mentioned in the old payment of wages act. So now it is mentioned that if any employee resigns or dismiss or leave any for any reason, if he is leaving the establishment, then all the dues of his wages shall be paid within 2 working days. Then working hours and overtime, employer must comply with the daily and weekly working hours limits prescribed under the code and the rules made thereunder. And if an employee whose minimum rate of wages has been fixed under the code works beyond normal working hours, the employer must pay overtime for such extra hour at a rate of at least twice the normal wage, right? So this was not there, right? Overtime allowance के बारे में earlier payment of wages act में कोई बताया नहीं है, right? It was mentioned in the factories act only, right? They have to work for 8 hours or 9 hours per day. Beyond that period they should arrange the double the OT. So here it says that employer has to fix the minimum wages, right? And if he works beyond the normal working hours, then the employee is eligible for the overtime allowance at the twice, that means double the normal rate, उसको हम eligibility देना है. And these are the records and registers, right? So employer must maintain the following in prescribed form. So attendance register एक maintain करना, attendance register कम muster roll, wage register, overtime register, register of fines and deductions. This all, that's all, 4 registers only. And the registers must always be kept updated and can be maintained either in physical or electronic form, right? Earlier all the records and all the registers are to be maintained in the physical form only, right? So now you can maintain all these registers and records in the physical or electronic form, and the records must be preserved for maximum 5 years, right? And another one thing is that this is also not incorporated in existing old rule. Employers must issue wage slips in prescribed form to all employees on or before payment of wages, right? They have to issue, right, wage slip, that is a pay slip. As we get pay slip, for them also we have to issue the wage slip without fail, and display on notice board. Employers must display the following on the notice board in English, Hindi, and local language. Earlier, it says that the extract of the Payment of Wages Act should be displayed on the notice board. But now they are saying that they need not to display this code or something act. Only you have to display on the notice board in Hindi, English, and including local language also, that the minimum rate of wages, normal working hours, wage period, date of wage payment, name and address of the inspector cum facilitator, right? Earlier, the state government will nominate a, right, payment of wages inspector, the inspector, factories inspector. The inspector nominated in the Factories Act will be the inspector for the Payment of Wages Act also. But here they are saying that inspector come facilitator, right? He is not meant for the imposition of fines or inspection, right? He should correct and guide the employer as well as the employees also. So what are the display on notice board? They should display in English, Hindi, and local language. Minimum rate of wages, normal working hours, wage period, date of wage payment, and name and address of the inspector cum facilitator. So if they have any grievances, they can rise with him. And authorized deductions from wages and under the code is employers must not make any deductions except authorized under the code, right? These include deductions for absence of from duty, deduction for damage or loss, deductions for recovery of advances or loans, deductions for fines imposed after giving the employee an opportunity to be heard. अगर आप कुछ फाइन डाल रहे हैं एम्प्लॉय पे, राइट, ड्यू टू एनी disobedience of the orders, if you are imposing any fines, it should be intimated to the employee, right, without giving an opportunity to represent, right? You cannot, right, you cannot impose any fines against the employee. So these are the eligible deductions, and here important thing is that the permissible limit of deductions under the wages shall be 50% of the wages only. Earlier, as per the old rule, right, it says that the Payment of Wages Act, if society recoveries are there, right, society recoveries, then maximum permissible are 75% of the deduction, 75%. If no society recovery, right, no society recovery, then it is 50% only. So now code itself says that only nothing doing, right, only 50% of the wages can be deducted from the employees, this thing, right? So permissible deductions are 50% of the wage. And one more thing is that bonus, right? Bonus, actually this is bonus. So it says that for every year on first day of bonus must be paid to every employee who draws wages up to the limit set by the appropriate government and has worked for at least 30 days. अगर किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आप 30 दिन का काम किया है, then you are eligible for bonus. So there might be chance of question that for minimum days required, working days required for payment of bonus by the employer to the employee. So it shall be 30 days. So कितना पे करना है हम? We have to pay at least 8.33% of the right, and wages. The annual bonus is paid minimum at the rate of 8.33%. 8.33% is nothing but that our basic pay divided by 12. Basic pay divided by 12. And same thing, PF credit also, PF subscription also हम 8.33% ही लेते हैं, PF subscription also. Right? So minimum bonus shall be paid. Minimum days required for payment of bonus is 30 days, and minimum rate of bonus is 8.33%, and maximum up to 20% of the wages earned by the employee. So bonus provisions के लिए minimum days are 30 days, and minimum bonus is 8.33%, and maximum is 20%. वो दो चीज आप याद रख लेना है. So this is the gist about the Payment of Wages Act. That is code, the code on wages 2019. Now we will see the Industrial Relations Code 2020, right? So the Industrial Relation Code, it amalgamates three central legislatures. So what are that three? The Trade Unions Act 1926, the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946, and the Industrial Disputes Act 1947. Actually, in railways, right? Railways, the Trade Unions Act 1926 tha, and this Industrial Dispute Act 1946 was, we are implementing these two acts. Now, including this Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946, right? They made one act as Industrial Relations Code. So Industrial Relations Code 2020 seeks to consolidate and rationalize the provisions related to trade unions, conditions of employment in industrial establishment or undertaking, and the investigation and settlement of industrial disputes, right? So it relates with the trade unions, conditions of employment in industrial establishment or undertaking, and the investigation and settlement of industrial disputes. So as per the new act, there shall be bipartite committees. Bipartites means both the sides, employer as well as employee side. Employer as well as employee side, we have to nominate the committee where more than, right, to 100 employees working in any organization, where minimum 100 employees working in any preceding, in the preceding 12 months may be required by the appropriate government through a general or special order to constitute a works committee. In each establishment, this thing, industrial establishment, right, if they have more than 100 employees worked in any month of the preceding 12 months, then they have to nominate a works committee. And the number of representatives of workers shall not be less than the representatives of the employers. अगर employer side ज़्यादा हो गया, employee side कम हो गया, employers may dominate the employees. So rule protects us, the law protects us that the representative of workers and the representative of employers, right, must not be less than the रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ द एम्प्लॉयर्स. इसमें इसका मतलब है आप इक्वल रह सकते हैं बट नॉट लेस देन द एम्प्लॉयर साइड. द रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स ऑफ द वर्कर्स शैल बी चूजन फ्रॉम अमंग द वर्कर्स ऑफ द एस्टैब्लिशमेंट, शुड बी एज ए प्रिस्क्राइब्ड बाय द appropriate government and in consultation with their trade union. The works committee must function with the objective of promoting and maintaining harmonious relations between the employer and workers, right? So the main advantage, this objective of this works committee is to maintain cordial relation between harmonious relation between the employer and workers. And we have to nominate the grievance redressal committee also, right? So every industrial establishment employing 20 or more workers must constitute one or more grievance redressal committees to address individual employee grievances. Up grievance redressal committee, you can nominate any number of this thing, but minimum condition of where minimum 20 employees are working, we have to nominate this grievance redressal committee, GRS. So the committee must have an equal number of representatives from the employer and workers, right? The committee must have an equal number of representatives from the employer and the workers also, and the total number of that committee members must not exceed 10. 10 से ज़्यादा नहीं रहना है, equal number रहना है. So it means that 5 members from the employer side and 5 members from the worker side, we can form a grievance redressal committee. The chairperson shall be selected alternatively from employer and worker representatives on a rotational basis every year, right? Chairperson will be, right? Chairperson, agar first 2026, if we nominated the employer as the chairperson. So 2025, 2027, employee will become a chairperson. Nominee of a employee will become a chairperson. Again, we have to nominate another employer in 2028. And in 2029, employee side, that means trade union side, will become the chairperson of that grievance redressal committee. So every alternate year, it should be exchanged between employer and employee. एक साल अगर कोई employer chairperson है तो दूसरा साल employee side वाला कोई chairperson होगा. Trade union or any person, nominated person will become the, right, that this thing, chairperson of the committee. And the committee must ensure adequate representation of women workers, which shall be at least proportionate to their share in the total workforce, right? अगर आपके पास, right, among the total workforce में आपके पास 20%, right, if you have the 20% of the women, right, in your workforce, then there must be 2 members. We have already discussed that a GRC, right, a GRC, equal number of representatives from employee and employer, right? And maximum is 10 members. Maximum is 10 members, and every alternate year, 1 year employee and employer will be, right, employer will be the chairperson. And there must be women participation will be there, right? Women contribution should be there. And if you have total 20% of women, then there must be 2 women members shall be there in your grievance redressal committee. And grievance redressal committee को आप क्या दे सकते हैं, that any aggrieved worker can submit application within 1 year from the date on which the cause of action of such dispute arises before GRC, right? You cannot reopen the 10 साल का पीछे केस, 20 साल का केस आप नहीं राइज कर सकते. The any worker can raise the grievance of, right, within 1 year, 1 year from the cause of that action they can raise. And the GRC should complete its proceedings within 30 days from the date of receipt of the application. First, we have learnt about the works committee and work committee, where there are more than 100 employees in any establishment or industrial establishment. In the preceding 12 months, we have to nominate a works committee, and number of workers and number shall not be less than the employers, and the works committee must function with the objective of promoting industrial, maintaining harmonious relations or cordial relation between the employer and worker. Then we have discussed about the grievance redressal committee, right? Grievance redressal committee, we can nominate one or more grievance redressal committees where more than 20 employees are working in any industrial establishment, and the committee have the equal number of employers and employees, and not more than 10 members. There must be representative of women at the proportionate of this thing, and chairperson of the committee will be alternative. Well, it will be shared by the employer as well as the employee. So within 1 year grievance rise karna hai, and grievance shall be disposed within 30 days. So this is with regard to the standing orders, right? Agar kuch standing instructions of a government hai, then they can provisions on standing orders apply to industrial establishment employing 300 or more workers, right? Specific standing orders will be there. Specific standing orders as per the establishment, right? Suppose in any establishment they may give the instructions that you should not spit within the right within the that industrial this thing premises, or they may give the instructions, appropriate government or any government, any employer, they may give the instructions that you should not smoke. Agar wo petrol industry hai, you should not smoke, you should not carry any fire, right? Like that they can give any this standing orders. So the central government will notify model standing orders for uniform application, right? It will be depend on the that industry, right? Industry ka standing instructions alag rehta hai, and employers may adopt the model standing orders and only need to intimate the certifying officer. If the model standing orders is not adopted, employers must prepare draft standing orders within 6 months of commencement of the code based on the notified model standing orders. Employers must consult the trade unions, the recognized negotiating union, or the members of the negotiating council before finalizing the draft of the standing order. The draft standing orders must be submitted to the certifying officer electronically or otherwise for certification, and the certifying officer should issue that standing order within 60 days, and failure of that certifying officer beyond that 60 days, it will be deemed to be issued, right? Certified, it is deemed to be certified, right? So standing order means standing orders will be notified by the appropriate central government, right? It depends on the industry to industry. Abhi मैं एक example बोला ना, right? अगर petrol industry है, you should not take any inflammable items, right? Or safety gears, precautions to be taken, safety gears to be wear. If they fail to wear that safety gears, they can impose some penalty or something. If anyone comes to the right, if anyone comes late, too late attendance, some salary recovery or something like that, they can give some standing instructions. And recognition of a negotiating union or negotiating council. So right now we are recognized trade unions, so we are conducting the secret ballot election, right? Secret ballot elections, right, to the employees, right? Secret ballot elections conduct कर रहे हैं हम, and for every, right, for every 5 years, for every 5 years we are conducting the secret ballot elections, and those secures more than 33% of the polled votes, right? Those secures more than 33% of the polled votes. They will be treated as a right recognized union. इसमें क्या हो रहा है? more than 1 and 2 3, there is chance of 3 recognized trade unions, right? And we have to conduct the negotiating machinery, that is negotiating council or negotiating PNM, permanent negotiative, this meetings, right? PNM meetings with all the recognized trade unions at a divisional railway level and as well as at a board level also. But now the code says that there shall be a only sole recognized, right, sole negotiating union for the work. If only one registered trade union is functioning in an industrial establishment, the employer must, subject to prescribed criteria, recognize that union as the sole negotiating union for the worker. If more than one registered trade union operates in an industrial establishment, the employer must recognize the trade union that has the support of 51% or more of the workers on the muster roll. Support means we won't conduct any this thing, right? Won't conduct any secret ballot elections or nothing. We will see the subscription, right? If any recognized trade union have the subscription of more than 51%, then they will be a recognized trade union. If none of the trade unions have the 51% of the support of the workers, then the employer must constitute a negotiating council, right? 51% or more, this thing is there, we will recognition of negotiating union. If not more than 51%, none of the trade union is secured, then the employer must constitute a negotiating council. The council will include representatives from registered trade unions that have the support of at least 20% of the total workers, with one representative for each 20% of membership and a proportionate representation for any remaining fraction, right? So on proportionate basis, the employer will constitute a negotiating council, right? And those who have minimum 20% and above, right, support of the workers, they will be nominated as a representative for each 20% of membership and a proportionate representation for any remaining fraction. Okay. So agar if only 80% of the workforce, 80% of workforce have enrolled, right, subscription है, right, and बाकी 20% किसी को सपोर्ट नहीं दे रहा है, वो लोगों का सपोर्ट सब्सक्रिप्शन नहीं रहा है. तो मान लीजिए आउट ऑफ दैट 80%, 50% one union is having X and remaining 30% another Y trade union. Then यहाँ से हम 5 लोग ले लेंगे, यहाँ से हम 3 लोग ले लेंगे. Will constitute with that employer will constitute that 8 members, right, negotiating council. 8 members से negotiate council हम ये कर लेंगे. Okay, so recognition is there must be sole negotiating union will be there, right? Those are having minimum 51% and above subscriptions, they will be recognized as a recognized trade union or negotiating union. If none of the trade unions have 51 or 51% of the support, then we have to nominate on proportionate basis for each at least 20% of the total workers, we can nominate the employer will nominate the constitute a negotiating council on proportionate basis as per the support to the trade union. So any recognition of the negotiating council will be valid for 3 years, whereas we conduct the secret ballot election for 5 years. But here, as per the new rules, it is 3 years only, and it can be extended, right, up to maximum period of 5 years. So notice for change of service, right? If any employer intends to change any service condition listed in the third schedule, the employer must give a prescribed notice to the affected worker, right? Within after the change can take effect only after 21 days from the date of the notice. So for any change of service condition is there, it is the responsibility of the employer to intimate to the affected workers, right? If effect and the change can be come in force only after lapse of 21 days of the notice only. And layoff, retrenchment and closure provisions. So industrial establishments such as factories, mines and plantations employing 50 to 299 workers must serve notice on appropriate government or such authority as specified by the appropriate government before carrying out any layoff, retrenchment or closure. ये ले ऑफ का मतलब है राइट टेम्पररी इनेबिलिटी टू प्रोवाइड द वर्क राइट ड्यू टू शॉर्टेज ऑफ कोल और पावर something, right? Up temporarily, employee is ready for work, but employer is unable to provide the work. Employee is ready to work. वो सुबह उठा है, सुबह उठ के नाश्ता करके ऑफिस को आ गया काम करने के लिए, बट आते ही वहाँ पावर फेल्यूर है, नहीं तो कुछ मटेरियल नहीं मिला है, राइट? द रॉ मटेरियल और समथिंग इज नॉट रिसीव्ड बाय दैट एम्प्लॉयर, देन दैट इज कॉल्ड ले ऑफ, राइट? वो दिन के लिए ले ऑफ. एंड रिट्रेंचमेंट का मतलब है ही इज रिमूविंग दैट एम्प्लॉय फ्रॉम दैट वर्क, राइट? कंप्लीटली रिमूविंग. रिट्रेंचमेंट का मतलब है completely removing that employee from that work. And closure means that it may be permanent or temporary, right? Closure of the workplace for permanently or temporarily उसको हम closure बोलते हैं. Due to raw shortage or any other reasons they can close. So industrial establishment having 50 to 299 workers must serve notice on appropriate government on such authority as specified by the appropriate government before carrying out any layoff, retrenchment or closure. It is not automatic. They should intimate to the appropriate government with regard to the closure of the work or retrenchment or layoff. If a worker is laid off, the employer must pay compensation equal to 50% of the basic wages plus dearness allowance that the worker would have received if he had not been laid off, right? इसका मतलब है आप lay off कर दिया, right? You have came to office, right? Came to office by 9 a.m., right? Ready to work, but no power or mission failure. You are ready to work, but there is no scope for work. That is called a layoff, right? So during layoff period, we have to pay. अगर एम्प्लॉय को हम एक दिन के लिए 1000 रुपीज प्लस 500 DA पे कर रहे, राइट? कुल मिला के हम 1500 का पैसे दे रहे. So it means that he should be paid without work. He should be paid at least 750 rupees. So 50% of the minimum that wages, right? 50% of the wages of the basic wages plus dearness allowance that worker would have received shall be paid towards the compensation. Employers must give 1 month's prior notice to worker before retrenchment. अगर आप काम से किसी को हटा दे रहे, निकाल दे रहे काम से, then at least you have to give the notice to the employee with at least 1 month's prior notice. So retrenchment compensation must be paid at the rate of 15 days average per each completed year of continuous service, right? So retrenchment compensation as per the new code is per each year. Each year he has to pay each year 15 days wages. Each year 15 days, राइट, वेजेस पे करना है. अगर कोई एम्प्लॉई 10 years काम किया है, आफ्टर दैट ही इज रिमूविंग फ्रॉम दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, so he should be paid into 10 multiplied by 15, so he should be paid at least 150 days salary, right, before his retrenchment. अगर कोई 20 साल का काम कर लिया, उसको हम we have to pay that 300 days wages, right, salary to that employee before he is to be retrenched by the employer. And in addition to that, he has to credit another 15 days wages for each retrenched employee to the workers reskilling fund. This is the new law, right? अभी नया आया है 15 दिन का. इन पर अगर वो सपोज मान लीजिए कोई एक एम्प्लॉय 10 लोगों को रिट्रेंच किया है, right, employees retrench, right, for each employee he has to credit 15 days of wages, right, towards the workers reskilling fund, right. So iska matlab 10 employees and 15 days, so he has to credit 150 days wages, right, to the workers reskilling fund को credit करना है वो. And then come to an employer planning to close an establishment, he should give the proper notice, prior notice to the appropriate government within at least 60 days before in advance, right. So clearly stating the reasons for closure and must simultaneously serve a copy of the application to the workers representatives also. So for closure, he has to give a notice to the appropriate government at least before 60 days of the this thing, 60 days in advance, and a copy of this same should be handed over the workers representatives also. When ownership or management of an establishment is transferred, workers with at least 1 year of continuous service are entitled to notice and retrenchment compensation. अगर ownership change हो रहा है, then they should be given the notice period and they are eligible for the retrenchment compensation also. Then layoff or retrenchment and closure provisions. So industrial establishments such as factories, mines and plantations employing 300 or more workers must obtain prior permission from the appropriate government before any layoff, retrenchment or closure. If a worker is laid off, the employer must pay compensation. फिर दोबारा आ गया. Okay, here also they have to pay 50% of the this thing, and employers must give 3 months prior notice before retrenchment. So these instructions are meant to the employer having the workforce of 50 to 299 workers, right? Please don't confuse. 50 to 299 workers के लिए these are the provisions. Whereas more than 300 workers are employed, same factories, mines and plantations only, and if more than 300 workers are there, then they are also eligible for the laid off period के लिए 50% wages eligible है plus dearness allowance. And here employer must give 3 months prior notice before retrenchment. Where 50 to 299, it's a 1 month notice period. Retrenchment के लिए 1 month notice period or 1 month salary advance में देना. Here it is employer must give 3 months, right? 3 months prior notice before retrenchment. Retrenchment compensation must be paid at the rate of 15 days average for each completed calendar continuous service. Here also same thing, right? Retrenchment compensation. And the workers reskilling fund also same only. And in an employer intending to close an establishment, he must apply for prior permission at least 90 days in advance. So clearly stating, there it is 60 days, right? Here it is a 60 days, and here it is a 3 months, 90 days. And in case of transfer of notice month, this is with at least 1 year are entitled for the notice and retrenchment compensation. So rule is very clear that 50 to 299 employees का एक rule है, right? And more than 300 employees का दूसरा rule है. So here in both the cases, right, layoff is the same. Layoff, right? Layoff 50% of wages with DA layoff में. And retrenchment and 50 to this right, when it is retrenched, so here 1 month's notice period, 1 month's notice period, and here it is 3 months, 90 days notice period. Okay. And for any closure, right, closure, it requires 60 days notice, 60 days notice, and here it is 90 days notice. Okay. And for change of employer, change of employer, that with 1 year service, right? With 1 year service employee को notice देना है. 1 year service employees must be given the notice, right? So this is the rule, right? 50 to 299 employees and more than 300 employees. Layoff is the same. Retrenchment notice period is a little bit varying, and closure notice period is also varying. And this is with regard to this mandatory notice of strike or lockout, right? Mandatory. So in each establishment, old rule says that as per Factories Act or something, this Dispute Act, Industrial Dispute Act, notice period, right? Notice period for the so only this strike notice. No strike notice, right? Strike notice is applicable only in PUCs only. PUCs, that is public utility services, right? Public utility services like telephone or trains, road transports, all this comes under the public utility services. But now all the establishment, all the industrial establishment comes under this mandatory notice for the strike and lockout, right? So an employer receives a strike notice from persons employed in industrial establishment. The employer must report the same within 5 days to the appropriate government. अगर कोई एम्प्लॉय स्ट्राइक नोटिस दिया है, लॉकआउट नोटिस दिया है, right? So then they have to, the employer has to intimate to the appropriate government within the 5 days. And if the employer issues a lockout notice, the same must be reported within the 5 days to the appropriate government. Lockout ka months means the employer is refused to give the work to the employees. लॉकआउट का मतलब है द एम्प्लॉयर जो ओनर है, फैक्ट्री ओनर और एनी माइंस ओनर, he refused to engage the employees or to take the work from the employees, that is lockout. And strike का मतलब है it is one type of right, all together, all the employees together refuse to work, they stop the working, right, that is just the strike. So if the employer issues a lockout notice, same 5 days notice, then and the conciliation proceedings shall be deemed to have commenced on the date on which the first meeting is held by the conciliation officer in an industrial dispute after the receipt of the notice of strike or lockout by the conciliation office. If a strike or lockout is already in existence, the employer must inform the conciliation officer on the same day the strike or lockout is declared in the manner specified by the appropriate government. So up to this, we discussed the two codes, wage code and industrial relations code. So bonus is 8.33% or 20%, right? Maximum is 20%. So maximum deductions are 50%, and wage period shall be decided by the employer. If it is a daily base, end of the day we have to pay the wages. Weekly base, before end of the last working day of the week. Fortnightly basis, within second day after the end of the fortnight. Monthly basis, seventh day, right, before the expiry of the seventh day of the succeeding month. So resignation or dismissal or termination, within 2 days they have to arrange all the wages. Working hours and overtime के लिए double the amount है, right, twice. And register records maintaining it to be attendance registers, then wage register, overtime register, register for fines and deductions. It shall be preserved for 5 years maximum, either electronically or manually, both chalega. And notice board में minimum rate of wages, normal working hours, wage period, date of wage payment, name and address of the inspector cum facilitator रहना है. And here industrial relation में, so works committee will be nominated in where more than 100 members are there, and equal members of employers and employees must be there in the committee, right, shall not be less than the employers. So it will function for the cordial relation and harmonious relation between employer and employees. Then grievance redressal committee, 20 or more workers है तो हम 1 or more grievance redressal committee can be nominated, and maximum members in so the committee must have an equal number of employers and employees. Total number of employees shall not be more than 10, and women employees shall be there on the proportionate of the women employees, and the chairperson will be rotated on every yearly basis from employer to employee and employee to employer. Okay, any question on this? ये थोड़ा ड्राई सब्जेक्ट है, नया नया अभी आ रहा है, so
So difference between layoff and retrenchment.
हाँ,
Difference between layoff and retrenchment.
ले ऑफ का मतलब है एक दिन के लिए, नहीं तो 1 घंटे के लिए, 2 घंटे के लिए आपको काम, राइट? एम्प्लॉयर फेल्ड टू प्रोवाइड द एम्प्लॉयर failed to provide the work due to shortage of material, right? Material, raw material, or power failure, power or mission failure, right? Mission failure, it is not the fault of the employee, but retrenchment, right? Retrenchment, right? Permanently removing the employee, right, by the employer from the work.
Thank you, sir.
सर जहाँ पे 50 वर्कर्स से कम होंगे वहां पे क्या होगा?
हाँ, 50% से कम है तो 51% रहना है मिनिमम, राइट? अगर मान लीजिए कोई एक्स एंड वाई, राइट? आई एम नॉट नेमिंग एनी ट्रेड यूनियन, राइट? एक्स एंड वाई आर 2 ट्रेड यूनियंस इन एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, एक डिवीजन में 2, राइट? डिवीजन, और ये मान लीजिए एक्स इज हैविंग some 49% of subscriptions, and Y is having some another 50% of the subscription, and no subscription candidates are 1%. So both cannot be recognized. Because rule says that there will be a sole negotiating union. So who have the support of workers of a minimum 51%. Here none of the trade union, neither X or nor Y, got the 51%. So इन दोनों को हम क्या करेंगे, प्रोपोर्शनेट बेसिस में दे देंगे हम इसको 4.9%. So I may round up it to 4, right? 4% हम वो उसका ले लेंगे, right? And 5% इसका ले लेंगे, कुल मिला के 9% हो गए ना, 9. So all the 9 put together, right? They will be nominated, right, on proportionate basis, and वो nomination के लिए minimum 20% subscription भी रहना है. अगर किसी के पास 20% सब्सक्रिप्शन भी नहीं है, कोई दूसरा जेड है, मान लीजिए ये 1% में बताया ये जेड है, तो जेड को कोई नहीं देंगे, हम कुछ भी नहीं देंगे. बाकी वो हम एम्प्लॉयर विल नॉमिनेट दैट negotiating council, right, including both the trade unions. दोनों ट्रेड यूनियन का, एक ट्रेड यूनियन का हम 4 लोग ले लेंगे, दूसरा ट्रेड यूनियन का 5 लोग ले लेंगे. We say it is at a negotiating council from the employees side, workmen side, and we will conduct the meeting with that 9 members only.
Sir, in railways, production units will come under industrial, over coming under Factories Act. Now it will be covered in this code, no?
Yes, everybody, all the establishment organizations will cover under this codes.
Even the open railways?
Yes, all the organizations.
Okay.
तो सर प्रीवियस जो फैक्ट्री एक्ट है वो सब एबॉलिश्ड हो जाएगा?
अभी ऑलरेडी अबॉलिश्ड है.
ओके.
Because we are waiting for the, अभी बता रहे ये लोग, there will be a single license through electronic mode. All the annual returns, all the forms, everything shall be submitted through the online only. So I think Ministry of Labor preparing the web portal, right? Web portal for this implementation of these codes.
सर आपने सीक्रेट बैलेट इलेक्शन का जो बताया था, मतलब अभी इस कोड में इंडस्ट्रियल रिलेशन कोड में
no election nothing. Those have more subscription, 51% से ज्यादा subscription है तो they will be elected as a sole negotiating council. Only one recognized union will be there. Whole negotiating council, if they have the more than 51% and above this thing, what we call subscriptions. If none of the union having more than 51% of the this subscription support of the workers, then the employer will nominate the negotiating council on proportionate basis. Those right who's having minimum 20% and above support on proportionate basis.
Sir, this means हमने जो इलेक्शन सीक्रेट बैलेट इलेक्शन जो कंडक्ट
राजा, ఒకటి. రాజా ఒకటి
ఏంటి ఒకటి
That will be
అదేంటి తర్వాత చెప్తా.
అగరబత్తి ఏం కాదు నిన్నెవడు అడిగాడు
రాజా రెండు
ఏంటి రెండు
తర్వాత చెప్తా.
చెప్పేది క్లియర్ గా చెప్పు కొటేషన్ చుట్టూ వాట్సాప్ లో
బాగా కొవ్వు వచ్చేసిందిరా. ఎక్సైజ్ చేస్తే తగ్గుతులే.
problem nahi hai, right? If they are already elected by conducting this secret ballot elections, then they will continue their whole term.
ओके मतलब दिस मींस 2029 में सीक्रेट बैलेट इलेक्शन नहीं होगा सर.
Nahi, there won't be no secret ballot elections.
ओके सर, राइट, थैंक यू.
Okay, we are winding up today and we'll meet tomorrow and we'll discuss remaining 2 codes tomorrow.
Sir, please share this PPT, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.